Live from New York City, it's the Gary Null Show. And now, your host, Gary Null.
Every praise is to our God. Come on, everybody, sing hallelujah.
Nice to have you with us, everyone. I'm Gary Null, broadcasting live from our studios in New York City and video streaming. However, it's a one-day delay in that video streaming, or even later this afternoon on Facebook and on YouTube. And we want to thank the thousands of people who go up and download the programs, watch it, and hopefully are making healthier choices. And today we're going to show you how to make those healthy choices. 1 minute of running per day, that's just 60 seconds, is associated with better bone health in women. University of Exeter in England. And University of Leeds, after sugary drink interventions, changing people's behavior. And why isn't Big Pharma paying for the harm it caused, like Big Tobacco? They paid over $220 billion. Martha Rosenberg. And we're going to look at different health issues that are not normally discussed, especially when it comes to fake news in science and nutrition. There's a lot out there. And many of the companies that make sugary products and sodas do that. Also, continuing to share more information on the medical benefits of cannabis, we're going to give you evidence today, peer review evidence, that medical cannabis, that's the cannabinoids, can cure cancer. Yes. Now, isn't it rather ironic that one of the leading provocateurs against legalizing medical marijuana usage is John McCain? Now, I don't like to see anyone suffer from disease. And in fact, I even have counseled people who have attacked me because they didn't believe in the healthy views that I share. And that's fine. They have their own point of view. I'm not here to convince anyone to change their mind. I'm merely here to share information with people who still have an open mind. And yet I want to see people, even the people like John McCain, be benefited, because the kind of cancer he has, which Ted Kennedy has, is very likely a terminal. So what if I go into the evidence and show you how many studies on cancer being cured with cannabis oils? So that's just some of what I'm going to share. Let's begin. I'm going to start our discussion today with something from Health Impact News, a respectable source here. And it's the most recent research. This is out of France. And this is some of the 22,500 studies in the government's own official database. So we're not using esoteric or debunked or fake news sources for cannabis. That's how much research exists now. And I played the legislator from Florida saying there's no evidence at all of the scientific base of marijuana, because right now in Florida, there's an effort to legalize medical marijuana, and there are those who are opposing it. What no one's asking, the people who are opposing it, who's paid you? And then look for the money trail, and you're always going to find it. But why aren't these people aware of the science? So we sent this legislator a link to 22,000 studies and actual studies, and we asked people in our audience, if you live in Florida, download the studies from ProgressiveRadioNetwork.com and then take that to your legislators, your governor, and spread it everywhere. And share that information with the Miami Herald, and share it with the other newspapers in Florida so that they can see for themselves, gee whiz, we didn't know all this evidence was here. We're your journalists. You could have found it out in a second. So why didn't you find it out? And this is true in every state, by the way. So the latest research I'm going to share with you today is about France doing some research to determine the cannabinoid receptors exist on mitochondria cells. And this news has not reached the mainstream media outlets yet, and seems to be underreported even by alternative health sources. And they have determined that it directly impacts receptor C1 nervous system receptor and C2 immune system receptors. But that's not news. That's 20 years old. It's just being reconfirmed. Now, these receptors allow cannabinoids, that's the essential healing part of the marijuana oil, from cannabis to attach their health-giving attributes to various internal physiological systems. But the French mitochondrial discovery seems to be the key to understanding why cannabis is able to handle several different diseases, including cancer. Without this, skeptics can become more skeptical about all these cannabinoid cure reports and think that it was just snake oil. It's not. And it's all in the mitochondria. So there's the study, and we posted it. And now there's another study up there showing that cannabinoids can help cure cancer. So if you had brain cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, stomach cancer, bladder cancer, prostate cancer, you bet I would have you in a heartbeat on medical cannabinoids through a physician in a state where it's legal. And if it meant moving to that state to get your treatment to save your life, I would also advocate you do that. By the way, that's only one of a whole armamentarium to help with cancer. From the University of Leeds, there's another study today on sugar. So an evaluation by the scientists to look at how you reduce sugar drinks we consume shows some success in changing younger people's habits, but warns that they cannot be the only way to cut consumption. Nutritionists at the University of Leeds have carried out the first comprehensive review of interventions to reduce sugary drinks. The team analyzed 40 studies, 16,000 participants across 3 age groups, children, teenagers, and adults. Their study was published in Obesity Reviews and found that children participating in these programs reduced their sugary drink content by 30%. They removed 2.5 teaspoons of sugar from the average children's intake of 16 teaspoons a day. And there was greater success with teenagers, and the most challenging people were the adults. So I've done a lot of work on this, starting way back when I wrote one of the definitive papers on sugar called Sweet Suicide. I continue to update it about every 6 months for the last 40 years. And it is a leading cause of disease, diabetes, prediabetes, metabolic syndrome, bacterial overgrowth in the mouth, bacterial overgrowth in the gut, candida overgrowth in the mouth and the vagina, and on the skin, in the rectum, and also brain fog, brain fatigue. So there's a whole lot of bad that comes from consuming processed sugars. Now, there are some sugars that do not have adverse effects. Maple syrup, organic deep-grade maple syrup, coconut sugar, stevia, raw honey that's unheated. These are fine. They're low glycemic, but it's the processed sugars, especially the high fructose corn syrup, that is the really deadly one. Now, they put sugar in so many things today that people are frequently not aware of how much sugar they're consuming. So what I did is I had David Slater, one of my in-house attorneys, measure on a scale, a gram scale, the actual amount, according to the USDA, of sugar consumed in one day by a teenager. And it was sealed, the bag was sealed and given to me. I went down to Washington, D.C. later that day, and that night on PBS, I opened up the bag and I simply took out of the bag, I said, this is how much sugar the average teenager consumes in one day. And afterwards, and it was a very successful show, it was a Thursday, it was an off day, it wasn't prime time, and we set a record, and the program director came over and said, did extremely well, and it was good information showing how sugar is hidden in foods and what it does to the body. And then about 10 minutes later, he comes back and says, well, I'm sorry, you can never appear again. And I said, why not? He said, I got a call from our board, and Sharon Rockefeller, who's on the board of Pepsi-Cola, a major user of processed sugar, said, don't have him back on. Why? Because she got pressured from the sugar board. So we began to unravel this, and so when I heard from the sugar board this is, quote, misinformation, we sent actual scientific peer-reviewed studies to every member of the board, every member of PBS's board, and to the media in Washington, showing everything I said was true. In fact, we understated it, and this is all about one industry, the sugar industry, being able to reach into PBS and control the outcome of content. creating censorship. That was not the only station that engaged in censorship. Boston's PBS did the same thing. In fact, in Boston, a very nice woman was executive producer up there, and after I did the fundraising, it was early, but it was too late for me to catch a plane back to New York or a train. And she said, the next trip you can take is in the morning. I said, fine. A lot of people want to talk. I'll just spend the whole night in this office answering people's questions. That's what I did all night long for the next 8 hours or so. I was on the phone answering hundreds of people's questions. So in the morning, she came, and it was 6 o'clock, and she had the car there, take me to the airport. And she said, well, I got good news and bad news. I said, what's the good news? She said, you broke all records in the history of Boston's PBS. You broke records more than Sinatra, Streisand, Riverdance, Yanni, Three Tenors. You smashed it all. I said, okay, and what's the bad news? She said, well, you can never be back here again. I said, why not? She said, because our board is comprised of medical doctors, and they're funded by pharmaceutical companies and big pharma and all the universities here, and they live in a world to themselves. Their reality is completely distinct and different than their patients or the world of anyone else. And the fact that you were successful outraged them because it meant that people are looking at a different reality of why they get sick and how to stay healthy. If you came on here telling people they got to trust their doctor and take all their medicines, no matter how many medicines they're asked to take, you would have not done well, but you also would have been invited back. So the last thing the American medical community wants is people to get well using anything other than their protocols. And their protocols don't include diet, exercise, stress management. It's drugs or doctor visit. So that's real. That's the conversation we had outside. I want to thank you for taking this and listening. Look forward to sharing more tomorrow. Have a nice day.